Alright, we're back with Monk and Acolyte of Chayula. For you guys that pick this ascendancy and then figure out that it's probably one of the worst in the game, you may or may not be wrong, but we got a recent leech buff and it's at least double the leech. This ascendancy is potentially now one of the better ones, and I'm going to show you my version of an endgame build. It can grow in so many different ways, and it would benefit a lot from the game having more skills and more weapons, but I'll show you what I've cooked up so far. But basically, we are going for an almost unkillable build at this level, at least up until whatever it is in the end game. I didn't even check anything. I'm just playing my own game, completely freestyle. So here's what I came up with. I just wanted you to check the stats right away. We are looking at over 5,000 energy shield. Now, I'm level 81. That means that I'm not in ultra late game by any sense. There's people at level 90 something already, maybe in 100, I don't know. 5,000 energy shield, and as you can see, we have no life, so we have Chaos Innoculation, or CI, so we take no chaos damage. And I've just cooked up some items and tried to get to as high energy shield as possible while maintaining really high evasion. Let's start with our main defensive layers. What we're trying to do is have energy shield as our main damage buffer and just fill up energy shield whenever something hits us. We can do that in multiple ways. So first of all, we have Flask that fills up our energy shield instead of life. We do that through Eternal Youth on the skill tree, which applies the life recovery from flasks to energy shield. And then next up, we have Mana Leech is instant. That's on the Chayula Ascendancy. And then on top of that, Mana Leech also recovers energy shields. Whatever mana we're leeching, the same amount is applied to energy shield as well at the same time. We do lose the ability to recharge energy shield, but that's not too relevant here anyway. Also, like I said, we have evasion, and we have pretty good evasion, especially if I dodge roll as well. Like, it adds up. Having over 70% evasion means that you're not going to get hit by a lot of things, and the things that hit you have to go through 5,000 energy shield, and you're not taking chaos damage because of Chaos Innoculation. So the most dangerous thing that can hit you is physical damage, and we have basically no armor. And that's why you need tons and tons of energy shield, just so you're able to tank. However big the hit comes in, you tank it, and then you fill up your energy shield. So another way we can fill up energy shield through evasion is with Ghost Shroud. So what Ghost Shroud does, well, the skill is called Ghost Dance, is it gains a charge up to 4 charges every 3.2 seconds. And when you're hit, so not when you evade, but when you're hit, you recover 5% of your evasion as energy shield. So in our case, with almost 7,000 evasion rating, every time we're hit, we recover 350 energy shield. And that happens quite often. Well, you don't get hit that much, so you have pretty good uptime on Ghost Shroud. So you don't even notice hits that are lower than 350 for the most part. We're not using Mind Over Matter yet, and we'll go over the tree, which would also put our mana in front of our life to protect as an additional buffer. We are too far away on the tree to get this. I thought it would be possible. I used to path this way, but it seems like we're too far away from this, and it's just not worth it. Not at the moment, at least. Our defensive layers kind of go past that. We also have blind on hit. We're pinning with our main attack. We sometimes freeze with freezing salvo. We also have Wind Dancer, which is insanely good. It gives us more evasion. Whenever we get hit, it knocks back all the enemies around us, and it also does a Culling Strike and Soul Thief. So getting hit means we get healed quite a bit. We build through Leech and Ghost Shroud. We also do a Culling Strike with high critical chance and potentially even poisoning our enemies, all without even shooting, our main skill. We also have Hinder, 24% chance to hinder enemies on spreading poison to them with Herald of Plague, and the poison spreads quite a lot. And also we have Wine Arrow, this is a skill that isn't really that useful, but we mostly use it for the slow, and we extra slow magnitude. And of course, last but not least, Into the Breach, which is generating flames, and the blue flame specifically leech 7% of our maximum mana to us whenever we touch those. So we have 1000 mana currently, and the more mana you have, the more energy shield you leech every time you pick up a blue flame. Now, our offensive capabilities come from using Rain of Arrows, which is a skill that is very hard to scale. Unfortunately, there is no way to scale it properly. Frenzy charges only give you more arrows, but it's technically like recasting it. So it's kind of a support skill, but we don't necessarily need anything else right now, and there is no skill that I've found better at this job at just our main DPS, because we're going poison and critical strike. So the goal is to shoot Rain of Arrows, get some poisons up, get Contagion on the main target, and then spread the poisons with Contagion and Herald of Plague, and just kill the whole screen. And we're hoping for a big crit to get as big of a poison as possible, and then that poison just spreads everywhere. We're using Envenom on Rain of Arrows, and we have roughly 40% extra poison on hit, so that means that we have 100% chance to poison. Other skills also have a poison chance, but it's lower. Concentrated effect, because it gives us 40% more damage, and also shrinks the AoE, which makes it more focused, probably better than the larger AoE. Pin, so the targets don't run away from where we start hitting them. We could also generate frenzy charges with an aura, but we don't really have enough slots for that right now. And Heft, which just gives us more damage. This could probably be switched for anything else. It's a throw between like 3 or 4 different skill gems, but I'm going with this right now. You could play Deadly Poisons. That could be great too. But I put that on our secondary DPS skill, and probably the best DPS for bosses, that is Toxic Growth. This skill would be amazing if it wasn't for that jump backwards. This just scales insanely well with good poison. With 20 quality, it has 11 of those pustules, and you just fire that 3 or 4 times on a boss of any sort, other than, I don't know, 4th floor of Sanctum, and the boss just dies as soon as it gets hit by like 2 or 3 of these. Martial Tempo, Corrosion to remove armor, and Deadly Poison to make the most out of the big poisons that come out of the poison pustules. Freezing Salvo is a nice quality of life skill, let's say. When you're feeling a little bit trapped, you can always use this and get rid of everything around you. Hourglass with 40% more damage. It's basically on a 10-second cooldown anyway, so that's fine. Bursting Plague, you could put this on any other skill. It depends on how you want to play it. Bursting Plague can go on any of the 3 skills that are main DPS. And I'm playing with Ice Bite, which gains 35% of damage as extra cold damage for 3 seconds on freezing an enemy. So we can technically freeze with Freezing Salvo, and then for 3 seconds we gain extra damage through Rain of Arrows or through Toxic Growth. Still playing around with this, not 100% sure that this works the way that I want it to, but okay. Contagion, it has some mandatory skill gems. It's more area effect, more duration, so you make sure that it spreads as many times possible for as long as possible. And just more cast speed, because whenever you're casting this many spells, you want to go through them as fast as possible. And more cast speed is a nice quality of life thing. The main booster of chaos damage, or just poison on bosses, is Dark Effigy. It's a totem that just does this. Applies Withering Touch. It applies it 10 times. So that means that the boss will take 50% more chaos damage. That's a lot of chaos damage extra. And it's basically a must on any big mob. I usually don't even cast it on rare mobs because they die fast enough, but you can, obviously. So, totem placement speed, mandatory. Withering Touch, mandatory. And then whatever. Because there's nothing useful that I've found that you can put on it. The last one is Wine Arrow, and this skill is... I'm I'm torn on this one. It doesn't do a lot of damage. We don't scale chaos damage specifically, so it's mostly there just for the slow. And I'm using Swift Affliction, Font of Blood, for whatever reason, and Encumbrance. Why am I using Font of Blood? I don't even know. This skill isn't that important. I'm looking for an alternative. Maybe you guys in the comments can tell me what we could use as our right click, let's say. So let's go over the skill tree real fast. We go through this attack speed, cast speed node, and into more skill speed and stuff. The nodes that give us both Evasion and Max Energy Shield are the best value on this whole skill tree. So we take those whenever we can if it's worth it. Increased damage if you dealt a crit in the past 8 seconds, that means always. And in general, we want more damage everywhere where you can get it. Also blind here. So here we take more of these hybrid nodes, and then evasion rating per 1 maximum energy shield on equipped helmet. So technically, from this helmet, we get 700 evasion. This is really good. Just more evasion. We're always on full life. That's something to consider. We're never on low life. And of course, we want poison nodes. So we're taking the good poison nodes. That's basically all but 1, as far as I can tell. And we get maim against poisoned enemies. So that's technically another defensive layer. So up this way, we take crit chance and we take energy shield. Reduce maximum mana, that's not good obviously, but just getting more energy shield is more important. So we'll take it. We're not taking nodes that look like this. Mana regen and then maximum energy shield. They're not efficient enough. Second thought, when I'm looking at this node here, the critical strike, this is probably better than one up here. It does seem like it is pretty solid difference, so I'm gonna grab this one instead. Alright, more damage, more fizz damage, and then energy shield, mana leeched. This is great. These nodes are great. I don't feel like I want to spend more points on this right now. There's one here. We have another one ready here. And there's also an amazing one down here. So this one is 50% increased amount of mana leech. And also on top of that, 25% increased chance to inflict ailments against rare unique enemies. So this one is by far the best, but it's kind of far away. I would need to path like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more points to just get there. But maybe it's not worth it. It's also not worth anointing because this one is so much better to anoint, in my opinion. To scale poison, you want as many poisons as possible, but they're kind of spread out. It's very hard to get all of them, so you might have to anoint one. We get one from up here, but it does reduce our poison duration, so we make up with something like this. Yeah, so just more crit nodes. This one is really good. Increased damage if you've dealt a crit. There's some stats thrown around. You need a ton of stats to play this, by the way. You need attributes because your body armor requires something like this, 150 intelligence. And your main skill requires 164 dex, and the next level is going to be like 180 dex. That's a ton. So you need a lot of attributes. So yeah, we take Eternal Youth, and then we path up this way. Take Chaos Innoculation, path all the way up to take the best node in the entire game, which is 60% increased maximum energy shield for 1 point. Absolutely ridiculous. And below it, 25 intelligence in case you need that. You can always grab it, so that's nice to have. You'll probably notice that we have extra jewel slots, so one here and one here. But what do we want here? There's multiple approaches that you can take. The quiver bonus is pretty good, but it's also the most expensive one. But you can also go for something like this. This is incredible value. 20% increased evasion, 3% increased attack speed, higher chance to poison, and increased magnitude of poison. So stuff like this is just incredible. How much you can get out of one jewel. And poison specifically, the poison affixes are extremely strong. Another example is something like this. Increased damage of some sort that fits you. Increased amount of mana leeched. blind on enemies, and then again, magnitude of poison. If you want to take it to another level, just pop a Val on a jewel like this. As long as they don't have the quiver bonus, they're gonna be only a few X. Now, the only problematic part about setting this build up is the items are very specific. There's almost no way you can set this up in early mapping if you're playing SSF, Solo Self-Found, because we are using all of our money to buy the gear that we need, because the gear is very specific. We want a bow that has as high physical damage as possible, so we don't want too many attacks per second. We can boost that later, but we want a base that has as much critical hit and as much damage. Pure physical damage. And of course, since we want to leech, we need a source of leech, because we haven't seen a single source of leech. We've only seen what leech can do and how much we boost it, but a source of leech comes on a bow and on the gloves and on the rings. So we're converting physical damage to mana. Now this one is on the lower side, but at least it has some. So this bow is pretty decent. I could obviously push it a lot further, but bows like this, they cost upwards of 50x easily right now. So again, gloves, we're scaling evasion and energy shield, and we're trying to get resistances done, and we're trying to get the leech in too. It's a suffix, so it does take an important resistance slot, because you saw that I don't have cap resistances yet. This is mostly because the rings and the belt aren't ideal, as you'll see, but you can get very close to capping. Honestly, the resistances don't matter that much. This is an example of a ring that you probably shouldn't get. It has no leech, it has no mana, it has mediocre resistances, whereas this one is a little bit better, but it doesn't have great resistances. You can also get more physical damage on the rings, so that's a big plus if you can get that too. The gloves and the rings follow a similar pattern, let's say. The belt is essentially the flex slot. It's there to fix holes in your build, and you ideally want all three resistances, and then mana, armor, and then some kind of flask effect on it. The boots, and these are pretty nice by the way, also evasion and energy shield. You want maximum move speed, mana, and then resistances and potentially stun threshold as well. You could technically get that on the belts. So boots are also a flex. This is an example of an average quiver that has a lot of useful stats. So crit chance, damage, accuracy. By the way, I have no clue how much accuracy you need exactly. Maybe someone in the comments can let us know what kind of number we're looking for, because I don't think there's exact math on that yet, because it depends on the distance now. No idea. So yeah, crit damage bonus, always good. Dexterity. And this last stat is not important at all. Maybe we could have gotten something better. Alright, so now the three most important items to make this build. The amulet is the first one. You want as much energy shield as possible. You want maximum energy shield and then percentage increase maximum energy shield. Of course, critical hit chance and attributes, they all come in nicely. Resistances. Realistically, you want crit, and then you probably want either all attributes or some resistance on it. Or you can anoint attacking toxins for maximum damage, or you can go for something like this, Ancient Aegis. But the problem is that all of this stuff costs so much right now. We're talking like 100x to anoint anything that is in the outer circles, and like even the second outer circles. So I just went for something cheap right now, and that is down here. Freedom of movement, this is like 2 or 3x max. You could potentially also grab this node if you want. We're talking about that with the extra mana leech. Really depends on what you're missing. Now look at this body armor. 744 energy shield. And the rest of the stuff doesn't matter as much. Obviously you want the usual suspects of resistances and possibly the stun threshold as well. Take a look at how much energy shield we get from this body armor. So we're at 5,000, we take it off, 2.2k. We get 2.8k just from one item. And the same applies to the head slot. It's the same logic, but we also get some extra evasion from that node on the tree that gives us evasion per energy shield. As you can see on the head, we can also grab some crit chance, which is nice. So how much of an investment are you looking at right now? Well, I got this gear over the last 2 days, and I think I've spent around 150x overall. And 150x, realistically, you can get by, I don't know, tier 6, 7 maps. You just need a few good drops and you're already there. That doesn't seem like a huge investment, and this build is already endgame ready. The only issue that I keep running into is giant physical hits like in Ultimatum are a problem, because the only way to fight against that right now is with more energy shield or mind over matter, but we're not playing MMOM. The other thing we could do is play something like Cloak of Flame, but then we lose half of our energy shield, so not really worth it. I'd rather get more energy shield. One thing that is troublesome when you're playing is the fact that you have no stun threshold anymore. It's like 1 because you have 1 life. So every big hit is going to stun you. You can avoid that by getting these 2 nodes here. And just the whole tree, obviously, here. Stun threshold is based on 30% of your energy shield instead of life. That's already quite a big chunk of extra stun threshold. And then on this side, you gain 20% of maximum energy shield as additional stun threshold. It's increased when you're on full life. You're always on full life. So over here, you're looking at roughly 3,000 stun threshold for this amount of ES. You can also get it on some items, and you should be fine with all of that. So let's take this build for a spin. And the monsters have crit bonus and crit chance. And this is a tier 10 map, level 74. Let's see how we do. So you can see the instant leech right away. It only works off of physical damage. There really aren't any monsters around. I don't know why. Oh, Omniphobia. Okay, so there's a boss here. Let's just melt him down. He just disappeared. Like, we have a lot of damage. It's not like we don't have damage. But at the same time, we're basically unkillable at this point. 5,000 energy shield. With Chaos Immunity, here's another rare. Like, it really doesn't matter. We don't have to focus on dodging. We don't have to run away from the mobs. We just face tank everything. We just walk through them. So guys, that is it for this video. Hope you have fun with playing Acolyte of Chayula. This is one way to play him. I would love to have more weapons to experiment with. I'm gonna try to play something with a mace potentially. Please let me know in the comments how this build is working out for you, how we could improve it together. I'll see you in the next one.